Stay tuned to see how Constantine masterfully juggled having a pantheon of gods and one Christian god, and whether his faith journey was one of political cunning or a true conversion. We will also dive into some of the often ignored data by looking at his family history, the battles he fought, and the coins he minted both before and after his death, so that we can offer you the whole story. The Roman Emperor Constantine was the first Christian emperor, or so we have been told. While this position is often stated in ancient history classes, the reality is that he may not have been the orthodox convert that much of history has cast him as. So today, we're going to give you all the facts so that you can decide if Constantine was actually a Christian. If you've been around for a while, you know that Constantine isn't the only great leader we do deep dives into. And if you're interested in early access to videos and live chats with the creator of Intrigued Mind, consider subscribing to our Patreon. Your support will greatly help us keep the channel producing more intriguing content. First, a bit of history. Constantine the Great ruled Rome from 306 to 337 during a time of relative decline. You see, by the year 117, Rome had reached its peak, and by Constantine's time, invasions, civil wars, and famines had wreaked havoc on the empire. During what is referred to as the crisis of the 3rd century, many emperors came and went. However, after Diocletian founded the Tetrarchy in the late 3rd century, Constantine emerged in the early 4th century as the sole ruler of the empire after having cleared out his Tetrarch rivals. A skilled military man and administrator, he was one of the few emperors by this time that lasted for more than a few years. In fact, if you don't count the later Byzantines, his 31 years as emperor was the second longest reign after Augustus, while his most lasting achievement was the creation of the city of Constantinople, or modern-day Istanbul, to essentially replace Rome. He is also famous for stabilizing the Roman Empire by defeating 3 rivals to the throne over an 18-year period. How Constantine acquired sole power is where our story gets interesting. Right before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, with another man claiming the title Imperator, Constantine's biographer, Eusebius, recorded that the emperor and his forces saw a Chi-Rho of light in the sky, along with the Greek words for, in this sign, conquer. That night, Constantine had a dream in which Christ reinforced the message, and this convinced Constantine to mark the Christian symbol of the Chi-Rho, or the first 2 letters of Christ's name, on his soldiers' shields. The battle ended up being a smashing victory for Constantine, and supposedly, the emperor attributed this win to the Christian God. However, the story of the Milvian Bridge is just a snapshot of a far more complex story. First, Constantine's origins. While his father was a pagan, his mother was a devout Christian. So devout, in fact, that she ventured through the Holy Land in order to bring Christian relics back to Rome after Constantine assumed power. At this point in time, Christianity was a somewhat fringe religion, with about 10% of the population adhering to it, and most of these adherents being the poor, women, and children. Once Constantine ascended to power, he seemed to take an unclear approach to religion. In the first 6 years of his reign, between 306 to 312, Constantine was, at least publicly, a pagan. Dedicated to the sun god Sol Invictus, which means the unconquerable sun, many of his statues and coins refer to the deity. This dedication would continue for the first half of his reign, but in 312, things took a massive turn. After winning the aforementioned Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine decided to break with hundreds of years of tradition by issuing the Edict of Milan. Passed almost immediately after the battle, this edict for the first time legalized Christianity throughout the empire, ending the hundreds of years of brutal persecutions and slaughters that had occurred because of it. This was accompanied by a move to uplift the status of Christians in the empire, and this can perhaps be best seen via 3 letters that Constantine sent to important figures in the city of Carthage in Roman North Africa. The first, which was to the governor of Roman North Africa, ordered him to restore to Christians and to the Catholic Church all the property it had formerly owned that was taken from them in earlier years, irrespective of its current owner. The second, which was to the Bishop of Carthage, assured him that Christian government officials would be given office and that Catholicism would be protected. The third letter, again to the governor, exempted clergy from any duties besides serving God, because this would, quote, confer incalculable benefit on the affairs of the state. From this point forward, Constantine began to use a mix of both pagan and Christian imagery. In the Roman world, it was common for new gods from conquered territories to simply enter the pantheon of ancient Roman gods, and Constantine seemed to follow this fluid approach in some ways. For example, as late as 330, Constantine put up a statue in the Roman Forum that likened Constantine to the god Apollo. However, at the same time, this Apollo was carrying a Christian cross, and the massive column it was placed on top of was adorned with stories that harkened back to both pagan and Christian religious stories. However, there does seem to have been a gradual shift towards Christianity from paganism over the course of Constantine's life. For example, as time went on, he began to favor Christians when doling out important government posts and exempt priests from paying taxes. Moreover, during his reign, he put a lot of money into the construction of massive churches, while a fair number of pagan temples were destroyed. He also began to shift towards using more Christian iconography, suggesting a shift in his own personal beliefs. His later years were mostly decidedly Christian in nature. For example, he called the Council of Nicaea in 325, which was a meeting where all the Christian bishops got together to determine which beliefs were orthodox or heretical, and which gave us the Nicene Creed. Once the council was over, he used pagan symbols far less frequently and began persecuting those who practiced forms of Christianity that went against the tenets established at Nicaea. Furthermore, when he founded Constantinople in 330, it was built without any pagan temples, which was significant since this was to be the new capital city. When Constantine passed away in the year 337, he converted to Christianity on his deathbed, which, while suspicious to some modern-day scholars, was common practice at the time. As an interesting side note, even Constantine's coinage after his death seems to indicate his Christianity, although that doesn't mean that there was no paganism mixed in there. You see, it was common practice that after an emperor died, their successor would mint coins in their honor. According to pagan beliefs, once a Roman emperor died, he could become a god amongst the pantheon. And so, while the front or obverse of the coin would have the emperor looking like a mighty god, the back or reverse of the coin would depict something like a pagan altar or an eagle. However, with Constantine, the mint had to change things up. First and foremost, rather than be depicted as a god, most Constantine commemorative coins have him in a cloak looking upwards. This is believed to symbolize the idea that he is looking up towards heaven at the one Christian God, meaning that he was not a god himself. On the reverse of the coin, Constantine is depicted as being on a chariot. This image is explicitly tied to the pagan god Apollo, as Apollo is often depicted as riding a chariot. However, the interesting twist is that Constantine seems to be reaching upwards. This upwards reach is meant by a hand coming from the sky, and many see this as the hand of God, plucking Constantine off his chariot, saving him from his pagan origins and bringing him into paradise in heaven. So what does this all mean? Was Constantine a true Christian or a pagan that only used Christianity as a political tool? While there are many ways to interpret his actions, the most plausible response seems to be that he became increasingly Christian as time went on. While it seems that he started off life as a pagan and a devotee to the pagan god Sol Invictus, the Battle of the Milvian Bridge seems to have been a turning point. From then on, he became much friendlier to Christianity, and while he did not fully let go of his pagan beliefs, he began to phase them out the further he went along his faith journey. Despite the fact that Christianity was a minority religion, he raised its adherents to high offices, and when taken into account alongside his building of Christian churches, destruction of pagan temples, and recorded letters, it seems that he thought that the Christian God was the one true God, and that his empire needed this God's favor in order to stay safe and secure. While he couldn't destroy paganism overnight, he worked away at it over time, and by the time the civil wars were over and he was safely consolidated as ruler in the 320s, he was in a strong enough position to be more explicitly Christian and not need to appease pagans for political reasons. Through holding the Council of Nicaea and building a capital city full of churches, by the end of his reign, it appears that he had few qualms about showing his true colors and acting in a way that was almost entirely Christian. So, what do you guys think? Was Constantine really a Christian, or did he act in a way that suggests that he was more pagan than he let on? Let us know in the comments down below. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel, like the video, and leave your suggestions in the comments below.